Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we are going to break into something that I know some people have asked about and have been curious about, not only on some of our videos but also on Discord, and that is how to work with Roll20. So today our format's going to be a little different. I'm not going to be talking to you face to face, so to speak. I'm going to transition over to a full screen of my Roll20 so you can see how I manipulate the items on the page to basically run my games. All right, so here we are at the main page for Roll20. You can see that I have a couple different games here that I am running, but what we want to do is start a new game. So as simple as you can imagine, we just click on Create New Game, where we can see this opening screen here. So basically we name our game here, so we're going to put test game name, and then you select a character sheet. Now, it's optional, you don't have to do this, but in my opinion, if you know what system you're going to be running, this is incredibly important, because not only do you get to have a sheet on the Roll20 game itself that you can monitor, adjust at speed, and help players finish up, but you also have the ability to make the game easier by being able to click on, rolling dice automatically off of the sheet. So for this little test, we're just going to scroll through. You can see they have a ton of games on here. Like, this is a huge scroll tab here, as you can see. You can also start typing in the name of a sheet if you wanted to. So let's just do like vampire, right? You start typing in, it'll start filling it in, it'll give you a list of all the sheets that relate to vampire. So let's actually use a simple D&D sheet for this. D&D 5th edition by Roll20. So that lots in the character sheet. You can see a preview of how the sheet looks right here, which is pretty handy. You can see all the things that are on it. And then once you're all good to go with a name for your game, a sheet selected, click ready to create game. This will create this new menu for you, which you can put up a picture for whatever you want to have. Let's take a look and see what we got. And this will basically put like a banner for your game. All right, so as you can see, you got a banner image there now. You can also change the name of your game from here and then save it to whatever you want. Same thing, you can always change the background image there just by clicking Save Image. If you ever want to change your character sheet, and you can do this even after you start a game, if you ever want to change your character sheet, go to Game Settings here. Just click on the Settings button, Game Settings, and you can swap your sheet out just by selecting a new one. Now, the first question I can see coming is, does that automatically, if I change from one World of Darkness sheet to another, will it automatically fill in the new sheets? And the answer to that is a maybe. I transferred our sheets from the Wraith one shot from a vampire sheet that I was making them use, so they didn't know what we were playing, to Wraith, and all the stats changed over, but some of the skills were different, so not all the skills transferred over. So it's a question mark. For me, I'd have to say do that at your own risk. Now, how do you invite players to the game? It's really easy. You go to your Invite Players button on the main screen for the game here, and that brings up a menu. You can send it via email address, or you can copy the link and send it to them manually if you'd want to, like say via Discord or Messenger, however you're in touch with your players, or you can just email it if you know their email address. And that will send them an invite, and once they join the game, you'll see them listed under the players here. I'll show you some of mine, for example, so you can see what it looks like. You can see that we have all these players attached to the games down here. Those are players that are attached to the games that we're playing. And so when you click on a game, let's click on the Bali Chronicles, you can see the players that are there with you. You can kick them from the game, promote them to the game master if you want to step down, things of that nature. And once you do that, it'll be completely under them. To actually start making the game, we can go into Launch Game here, which we'll click on. So this is your basic screen. You have a grid and a map, and that's it. You can scroll in or out. You can see you have a bunch of tools here for different layers you want to go to. You have the draw freehand and draw shapes on the map or make text. You can zoom in, you can measure and snap, you can reveal areas and hide areas, and you can roll, whatever dice you want to roll from here. Now, all that's nice, but it's not going to really help you make a map for your game. To do that, we can start messing with this tab here. It's this little page toolbar here. You click on that, it brings this down. You can add new pages here. You can delete them from here. You can modify the attributes. So for example, how big the page is, what the background color is, what type of distance is on the grid. So when people want to measure distance for how long they can see things, which comes in handy for things like this. Let me show you that really quick. If you snap, no snapping, you can hold down and go from here all around. It'll show your players measurements. So for example, if they're like, oh, well, my range is this on this weapon, how do I do that? They can use that measurement tool and see how far it is. So also in page settings, you can turn your grid on and off. This is actually handy. You can select the type of grid for hex to squares. You can do the type of measurements here, Manhattan, Euclidean, Pathfinder, or D&D. I generally leave it at D&D just for ease of reference. The cell width, opacity of the grid that it's down there. Restricted movement with dynamic barriers. That we'll get into. It's a little more advanced. But for now, I'm going to do my usual, which is I'm going to switch this color to black for my background. I'm going to good here. I'm going to leave off dynamic lighting and legacy for the moment just to get the basics down and hit OK. And as you can see, as soon as you hit OK, it immediately applies the changes. But now, how do we actually put a map up here? Well, this tool tab here has a bunch of different options for you. This one here is your art library. Your art library has premium assets, so things that you've gotten from your subscriptions, things you get for free assets, and your marketplace purchases. Additionally, you have your library, which you can upload images to, which you can see I've done for a lot of games here. Some of them are for just visuals, some are for maps, some of them are actually for cheat sheets for players. So like for Cyberpunk Red, I use things like images of some of the tables off of the PDF I got from DriveThruRPG, so I can have it at reference at my fingertips if I need to reference a page or a chart really quickly. I have it there. Or you can see other assets, so maps, tokens, scenery, anything you want to put in here, you can just organize it. You can make a folder for it, slide it in there. It's easy to upload. Just click on the upload. It'll pull up your drop file here, and you can select what you want to download. It'll open up another window. You can add folders by clicking add. Really simple. But for maps, let's go with stuff off the marketplace. Now, Roll20's marketplace is actually really robust. I've got a ton of stuff I've picked up off of the marketplace for this. So since we're doing D&D, let's do something D&D. So why don't we do Ancient Worlds and Temples here? You can see here, we've got a small little test. Now, a little thumbnail that'll pop up. They'll show you what images you're using. Now, not all of them have grids, and it depends on the person who's doing the map. I'm going to expand this so we can read everything. So some have no grid, but I'll tell you how many squares it is. It's 44 by 34. And some will have grids, like this will say grid, and this will say no grid. Both of those can be useful. I tend to use the grids and just match it to whatever size I'm using. So let's snag a smaller one here. Let's use the hall with the grid. So it's 22 by 17. That will 100% fit in our map here. This is 25 by 25 right now. Now you'll see as I drag it out, it does this really weird thing. That's because we're set to the token layer. You don't want to be set at the token layer. We want to put it on the map layer. So let's go to map and background and try that again. We're going to do the hall to grid, pull it over. Now you can see this will automatically snap into the squares, right? It's automatically going to shape itself, which is probably a good thing. You can also see here that some of the grids are not quite lined up. That's because we're not matching the size. Like it's too small right now, so the grids are going to look messed up. This grid is 22 by 17. To make it super easy, let's just make the size here the same size as the map, 22 by 17. That'll auto adjust. Now we can go in. We'll zoom out a little bit so we can see everything. Line it up, and we'll just drag it all the way across. Now you can see the grids are all lined up because we're the proper size for the grid on this. Now, if you use the grid, it makes it easier for you to start putting in tokens for your players. So let's pull some tokens up. Let's go to the token layer. You want to be on that because that way it's a different layer that's visible. Let's go to my library. Let's just pull in some L5R PCs here. So here's a PC. When you pop it in, it'll automatically lock into a grid, and it'll snap into the grid that you have set up automatically as it's moved around. Now, this is setting up a basic map and a basic, essentially a basic token for a character to interact with the map. You can put enemies in the same way. You can also, if you want to, right click and you can go to copy and pasting stuff. So you can copy the token, like say if it's an NPC that you want to make a bunch of, and paste it in. Now when you copy and paste, when you paste, it doesn't lock into the grid. So keep that in mind. You'll probably have to move it so to get it to line up. And that's how you start positioning tokens around the board. Now, what if a couple of these tokens were things we don't want players to see? Really simple. We can right click it, go to layer, and hide it on the GM layer. Now for the GM layer, only you as a storyteller, as the GM for the game, can see that layer, and it's always going to be slightly off colored. So you can also move down to that layer, and you can see now we can move this again. If we're on the token layer though, we can't touch it. You see we're clicking here, we can try to drag and select, it's not going to grab it. We have to be on the proper layer to have it there, then we can move it around. When we're on the GM layer, we can toss it back to the token layer, and now it makes it visible to the player. Now, for a lot of the tokens in the games, to have a player be able to move them, you need to adjust the permissions on the token. So when you lay down a token, you got to click on a little gearbox here, just click on this, and you can see it says represents character. When you click on this robots, once you have characters in your game, you can assign a token to the character. So that means it'll be controlled by whoever that character is controlled by. This will automatically fill in, and that will let them kind of move it around and things like that. We're going to cancel. Now, about those character sheets, how do you do those? Well, pretty simple. This tab here that looks like a newspaper is actually the journals. You see a pop-up journal. Click on it, and we don't have anything here right now. So let's go ahead and add a folder. We're going to call this characters. Then in that folder, let's add a character. Right click on the title of the folder. You can get these options here. Add character. It'll automatically give you a randomized name. You can make whatever you want. If you click on the character sheet, it'll pop it up, hit edit, and this is where you can assign it to a player. So I'm just going to assign it to myself. Control and be edited by me. And then you can upload a token, or excuse me, a picture or a token you want it to be looking like. So if it's assigned to this token, for example, click on the token and then you select a token. It'll populate with that token. And we click save, change it once we're ready. The character sheet itself, once you click on this, there'll be a couple of different things. We're just going to edit the sheet directly here. You can choose your classes. So when you click on class, it's a drop-down menu. We're just going to make a fighter. You can write in your subclass. You can edit the level, edit in the sub race they have, off the race they have. You can click the gearbox to get a different set of stuff. So for alignment, experience points, the background the character selected. You can start editing in all of your attributes here. So they all start at 10. But for the D&D sheet, for example, not all sheets do the same thing, but let's just put it 12. This sheet will automatically update the modifier. And what's really cool is you can just click on a thing here, like we just click on Constitution, and we can roll that. So we just click Constitution, roll. You'll see this tab lit up here. That's the chat box, and it shows you what it's rolled. Now, it'll automatically roll for the D&D sheets, and again, every sheet rolls differently. It'll roll advantage for you. So the first roll is the one on the left, and then when it re-rolls, just in case it had advantage, it's a roll on the right. That will populate the stuff automatically, and when you start putting your weapons, like items and all that, you can basically start rolling those as well. So we can add in a modifier for the weapon here, put all the stats in, and then see if we can actually put this in. Just show you really quick, close it down. All right, so if we put that in there, you can see we put the sword up here really quick. We can actually just click on that, and it'll roll for the sword too. Again, it shows like it's advantage. So that can be really, really helpful in the middle of play. Just one-click roll. Nobody has to punch in the commands. Like if you wanted to punch in the command for it, it's just /roll 1d20, and then you can add whatever modifier. Let's say we'll give it a +3 and hit enter and roll a dice for you. It'll still pop up, but the one-click roll is really handy. And that's basically your character sheet. You can adjust them from there. Once a player has the ability to edit their sheet, you don't have to go in and fix anything for them. They can do it themselves while they go. Now, you can have the sheets open while your players have them open, but sometimes that causes a bit of confusion because when you move the sheet around, it will move for them too. So that can be kind of frustrating. So we've got a basic map. We've got basic character sheets. We know how to put a basic token out there. Now, there are other options here. You can see this little thing. this little circle, it has a bunch of statuses. You can click on it. So if you want to select one of the statuses, it'll pop up right next to the little token, as you can see there. You can click off it to turn it off. There are other options in tokens which can be interesting. So if we go back to details, you can put a health bar at the top if you wanted to. You can change the tint if you wanted to of the token itself. Like it'll actually have a tint over it, as you can see there. Like he's green, like he's sick. You can turn that off. You can give an aura around a person. So let's do a 20-foot aura circle, and we're going to tint it green around this token. And boom, now you can see 30 feet around. That would actually give, like if you want to test ranges, you can do it that way if you don't want to use the snap tool. And those are just some of the things you can play around with Roll20. If you want to turn the aura off, just put it back to 0 feet. And see, the aura's gone. Those are the basics of Roll20. Not a lot. Now, that's using basic maps. If you want to add another map, we could do so. So we'll do another map. We'll stay level 2. And click on it, and you'll see it's just like we had before when we first started out. It's completely blank. We can go into another map if we want to bring one in. But what if you don't want to use a map? What if you just want to draw something for your friends and have it just laid out? You can do that. So let's go straight to the map background level. We'll go to polygon line. Let's say we want to draw some rooms. We'll put it in black. We'll do large size, and we'll just snap down. So we'll say this is going to be first room. And remember, the rules apply here too. You also want to, once you're done drawing a line, right-click off of it if you want to go something else. Like if I wanted to go back down here from there. And using the polygon will basically make straight lines. So let's make a weird-looking room here. And we're going to put a door there. We'll do a door in a different color. Again, boom, 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 and click off. And we can keep on doing this however we want to. Like if there's a map that you want to use that's in your head, but you can't find it on anything, you can make one yourself. You can actually make roads. Let's say we want to do freehand. Like we're going to do like, oh yeah, here's the road that comes down this way. You can just draw like you would if you're drawing in paint. If you want to do things like this, make like a little path, you know, put some dirt and stuff on it. Get whatever you want. But you can do all kinds of stuff. You can pull your own maps over from things that you purchase, or you can make your own on this. You can increase the size of the map very easily, again, by just clicking on the settings here, and we can make it much larger. Now, if you change the background, it can affect the visibility. So like if we change to black, we're probably not going to see the black building. So the settings of the map do affect what people see. So keep that in mind as you're doing stuff. But we can always change it back. Just go back in the tools, change the color back to white. Boom, there we go again. And there's all kinds of packs you can pick up in Roll20 that have assets. So like this is an asset pack that I have for Feudal Japan when I was running Legend of the Five Rings. You can see all the things you can pull out. And you just kind of pull them in. Like put them on, make sure they're on the map, select. You can drag and drop these things. You can use them, you can shrink them. Once you click on it, you'll see the points that you can use to shrink or enlarge. Either way, it's not always going to do it to scale unless you drag a corner, right? Like that. You can also extend it unnaturally like that, or however you'd like. You can do whatever you want with the assets you get in terms of like making them larger, smaller. You just got to be careful. You just got to watch out because remember, it wants to snap to the grid if you have a grid. If you don't want it to snap, when you go to select it, hold down the Alt key and drag a point. And you can drag it at that point, or even if you hold down the Alt key and move it, it won't snap to the grid. You have it unaligned. You can do all kinds of things with it then. But the moment you let off the Alt key and move it again, it'll snap back to a grid like this. You can rotate objects. Once you have it selected, hold down the E key on your keyboard and then just use your mouse scroll. And you can see it move around like this. This helps you with positioning, which is really, really useful. Hey everybody, this is Future Ray, and I realized that I completely forgot to show you how to do something that's really important in Roll20. And that's how to move between maps that you've set up, not just yourself, but for your players. If we go up here to our page toolbar, we can click on this and we can see all the maps that we've made for this particular game. Now, to move your point of view to a different map, you just need to click on one of the other maps and it will load it up for you. but your player's view will not change. This is good for a couple of reasons. It lets you make changes to a map while players are on another map, so they can't see anything changing or you setting anything up. But when you want to move them over, it's really simple. You just go to this little banner that says players, click on it, and drag it to whatever map you want them to go to. Once you release your click, that will load up for your players, much like it loads up for you. Anyways, sorry about that. I completely forgot to mention that, and it's really important to do that. We'll get you right back to the video in just a second, but I do want to note that you can move players individually. You can have a player on this screen and move another player to level 2 screen or another player to this no dynamic lighting screen. That can cause a bit of a confusion though when you try to get them all back together, and they'll all see completely different things, but it's something you can play around with if you like splitting your party up. Anyways, back to the video. Thanks. Now, you can also do some useful things on a map like this, such as snap the map to a certain location. Let's say we want a center view of the screen somewhere. Let's say we got this player down here, but we want him to look at the thing that's right up here. We want the whole group's screen to center there. Like say a dynamic appearance has been made by a villain or some other effect. You can temporarily refocus all screens to that point by holding down the shift button and clicking to any point on the map. And the map will refocus at that location. So for example, we're down here and we went over there, the map will move for everybody and focus on that location. We're not seeing it move too much right now because we're already kind of focused. But if we want to zoom out, there we go. We can see it move around if we zoom out. Just shift and click. If you just want to ping something, like say this column right here, just hold down your left mouse button. And it'll ping it with whatever color is down here by your name, and you can adjust that as well. So if you want to change it to fuchsia, boom, there we go. But there are other things too that you can do in Roll20. One of the big ones is dynamic lighting. Now, I don't think you can do this without a subscription account. I have a Plus account, so I can do dynamic lighting. I don't believe you can do it with a basic free account. But in case you do get one and like Roll20, basically you can go into the map here settings and go to dynamic lighting and turn it on. These down here can be very useful, all these options. This one that says update when token drop, when you have dynamic lighting, literally the lighting changes based on the line of sight of the token. If you don't click update when token drop, as the players move their token, the lighting will change for them, their line of sight. If you do a token drop, it'll let them move the token, and once they drop it, then their line of sight will update. What this does is it helps with computer resources, to be completely honest. I usually put update when token drop because it's just easier on the computer. Daylight mode is just in case you don't want to deal with torches. Normally, if you use dynamic lighting and you don't put light sources on the map, your players cannot see anything, everything is black. If you turn daylight mode on, they can see automatically their line of sight. Explorer mode is a little more advanced. We'll deal with that later. It's like a fog of war. The opacity changes for the GM. For example, once we click save settings with the GM darkness opacity where it's at, the screen that we see will darken. As you can see, it did. It's gotten darker. It's because there's line of sight issues. Once we're on a token, Control L, the whole screen looks black. Why does that look black? Well, it's because we didn't give the token visibility. So when you turn on dynamic lighting, you have to go in dynamic lighting and hit vision. Then hit OK. Now, on the same token, Control L, it can see everything because we didn't put any line of sight blockers. When you do dynamic lighting, there's one important step that you always have to remember. As you can see, when we went to the cube here, it shows all our background map and tokens such. When you go to dynamic lighting, this lets you set up shapes that will block line of sight. So what we do here is go down to the next one from the layer. You can see now it's at the fire, so it shows that you're on dynamic lighting. Go to draw. Generally, I'll do this, polygon line. Once that pops up, you want to make it a color that you can easily see, because remember, your screen's going to be darker. And thickness of the line does count, because if lines are super thick, that casts a shadow. You leave them thin, it makes it easier to see. So for example, let's do this. We can have 2 points because it's doing the polygon, right? So it's going to do straight lines the whole time. So we're just going to make this area right here blocked off from line of sight because let's say we have a bad guy in there. We don't want the PCs to see him right away. Once we finish our circle where we want to go, it's important to right click, because if you don't, like say if we just did a circuit here, and then we went like, oh, we want to go down here and touch something, it'll make a geometric shape. It won't stop anything. So we want to get rid of that. So to get rid of it, we're going to grab that, delete it, and there we go. Now, there's a door here, and we can see the shadows here from the line of sight. If we go back up to token level and do line of sight for this token, Control L, this is what it looks like to a player. Everything where that line of sight barrier is, they can't see. Now, he can see through this door right here because there's nothing blocking it. So what if there's a door that we want a player to open and we don't want them to see inside? Well, it's simple. We go back to dynamic lighting. We go back to polygon line. But this time, let's designate a door with a different color. So I like using blue. And we'll make it thicker too, so we'll make it regular. Now, we want to be able to click on this when we go to the dynamic lighting level. And we want to make sure that it covers and connects both lines, where the green line ends here and when it ends here, because it's going to create that block, that shield that the players can't see through. Now, you'll note that I keep going back up to this arrow here. That allows me to do the select and move. When I do that, I can then select things like this line that we made for the door and move it if, say, for example, the players open the door. We can move it out of their line of sight, it doesn't block anymore. Or we can put it back and block line of sight again. Or if it's completely done, we can click back onto it, hit the delete button, and it'll go away. The door will no longer be there. And now when that player moves into that area, their line of sight will take up that entire room there. That's line of sight basics. If you want to do things like block stuff off your players, like say we won't want them to see past these columns or the trees, there's some interesting ways to do that, but I'll show you the way that I do it. It's essentially making an X over the object. So here is a straight line. We'll just make that block line of sight there. We'll do a little X over the column. Again, after every little bit of line, I hit the right click so that it considers it done. And you can see here, if we move back to the token and select the character, it acts like it blocks line of sight now. You can use that in your dungeons. But what if you want to put light sources down? That gets to be a little tricky. So we can go back to dynamic lighting, and I will go back to my resources. We'll go back to L5R, and I have a light token. So if you note, I'm in the dynamic lighting area. I'm going to put this right here, actually. And now it'll put it inside of a square. We're going to go to the token and double click on it, which will bring up the token setting, just like when we clicked on the one for the players. And where it says dynamic lighting, token emits light. And it shows you like a foot of like how far bright light do you want it to emit. I usually put 30 feet, and then I'll hit save. Now, remember, I have daylight turned on in this map, so everybody's going to see everything. Well, let's turn that off. Let's go back to the map settings, dynamic lighting. Click off daylight mode. Save settings. Now the whole map will be dark, except for this circle here that you can see. Now, if we go back to the token layer and see if we can get line of sight for that token, let's move them within the area of light. Control L. And you can see out to the boundaries, as you can see up here, of where that token is. All right, so what if a character has a torch? Really simple. Go back into their token, emits light, and do the same thing we did for that other token. And that will have that token itself emit light. What about using cameras with Roll20? Roll20 cameras are all good and well. I tend not to use them. We use other programs, but if you want to use them, just go to your settings, which is this little icon here, and it pulls this all up. You can clear your chat log. You can see it clears everything out. You can change bar positions. You can choose the size of the avatar. So this right down here, you can choose that bigger or smaller. So we put it large. You see it gets bigger on the screen. And you can move these around. Go to the bottom left of the avatar. You can see this pops up. You can reposition it anywhere on your screen. Now, mind you, when you do this, it will only change it for you and not your player. So down here, we can see where it says I want to broadcast things. Right now, it says I want to broadcast and receive video and voice. And if my camera were not already in use by my recording program, you would see my face here. Everybody would see it because I'm broadcasting it here to everybody. So if I want to change my mind, I want to broadcast voice. You can select it from a drop-down menu really, really easily. I'm going to disable it, hit nothing. And let's say I only want to get nothing from my friends because we're using something else. Click disable, click reconnect, and you'll be all set. And those are the basics of Roll20. That's everything that will get you started. How to pull a map on the board, how to use, placing tokens, how to assign tokens to sheets, how to assign sheets to players, how to do some dynamic lighting. Now, if you want to go back out to your game, you can just click exit game. That would bring out this screen. You can do like a blog post, like here's a wrap for what happened today. You can tell them what happened, and it'll pop up as a topic for the game. You can click back here, and at any time you can start inviting players. So those are the basics to running a game in Roll20. I'm going to do a little more in depth on maybe streaming a game if you want to do an actual play on, say, Twitch or another platform. I'll walk through how I set that up with my OBS and how to do it with Roll20. It's not that difficult. However, you do see some games where the people who are watching the stream see the game master's screen. They see the storyteller side of things. I don't want my players to stream snipe me to watch while we're playing, and I also don't want to reveal anything to the audience. I'd rather have them discover things as the players discover it. So to do that, I have a little trick that I use. It's super, super simple, and we'll get into it next time. But hopefully that answers some questions about Roll20. If you have anything that I can clarify, maybe in a future video, or go into a little more in depth on in comments, feel free to leave a comment down below. Again, as always, if you like what we did here and would like to get notifications, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, or the dislike button if you didn't like it. As always, we welcome comments below, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can whenever I see them pop up. But until next time, guys, have fun.